that I can't provide for you. But I think these 4 concepts are going to really be the entirety of the toolkit you need to be good at the interview part. Being good at a job doesn't mean you're good at an interview. And that's kind of one of the tragedies of the job market. You might be the best XYZ in the world. That doesn't mean you're great at interviewing. This is the great at interviewing part. Then I am going to talk a little bit about Amala Vita, how you can work with Amala Vita to refine this and many other concepts together. And I'm going to make a little commercial there. I promise not to make any commercials until we get there. But if you wait through that part and listen to my little spiel at the end, I have also then buried a bonus tip, a 5th thing that I think is something that tremendously improves people's interview game as well. So I kind of buried that behind the commercial wall there, and then we'll do Q&A. So without further ado, let's get into these 4 concepts, because if you grasp all 4 of these, I don't think you need to do almost anything else other than be a good professional to crush your interviews. So how do you prepare for an interview? Preparation and mindset are vital. If you've ever been on a webinar that I have run on any topic, you've probably heard me say mindset, mindset, mindset at some point. Mindset is upstream from tactics. It has to come first. The reason is there's not just a checkbox of things that you can do that if you click them all off, you'll automatically succeed. It never works like that. There are best practices, there are tips and tactics, but you have to be prepared mentally, because there's going to be curveballs thrown at you, and you have to sort of understand how those things fit together. So we're going to talk about the preparation and mindset that comes before you even set foot into that office, or let's be real, onto the video screen like we are now, because that's probably what it's going to be. So what do you do in the, you've gotten the call that says, hey, we're really excited about the application you sent, especially if you were on my application webinar a few weeks ago. I know that happened. So you've gotten the call or maybe an email that says, we're excited about your application. We want to move you into an interview process. Maybe you had a sort of initial phone screen. Those are usually just to determine that you're not, a lunatic, and then move into a real interview. So how do you prepare between then and the time of the interview? First, you want to know what they want you to know. Don't try and stalk people and go so deep that you become this absolute obsessive about the company, but you should know everything that that company is trying to tell the public, which really means at minimum, you should have been on the company's website. I have done many interviews where the person I'm interviewing, it's clear they've never so much as clicked on the homepage for my company. You can tell. It's clear that they've never looked at the outward-facing social media or marketing. Companies put so much effort and energy and money and expense into these pieces of communication out to the public that if you don't know those very basic things, like what they're communicating in their advertising right now or what's on the landing page of their website, they absolutely know, they absolutely can tell that you're just not really prepared or well-versed. So just do a basic Google search. Look at what comes up on the first page. You're not going 5 pages deep. If you know who's going to be interviewing you, yeah, of course you should check out their LinkedIn. That doesn't mean you have to go on this. You don't have to hire a private investigator to know everything about them, but you should at least know what they're trying to tell you, which means what's on their LinkedIn, or what's on maybe whatever social media pops up, maybe the bio page on the website for the company. Basic stuff. Please do it. Jot down a few notes. Have a few things to be able to talk about, just so that you can talk intelligently. Because I've asked questions like, hey, what was the most compelling thing about our recent advertising we've done in the past few months? And had people just fall apart because it was clear they had no idea. So the other reason to do this, you are kind of looking for either red flags or areas where you can help. You're looking for things you can improve on. You're looking to spark ideas to come into an interview. And we'll talk about why that's important in a minute, but you want to have something when you come into the interview other than just you being this blank slate that they're going to interrogate. Lastly, this is the most important thing before an interview. In like the hour before the interview starts, don't do anything. Any of this stuff I just said, don't do it an hour before. An hour before the interview, eat a sandwich, drink a glass of water, take a nap, watch an episode of your favorite TV show. Do something that just puts you in a more level mood. Because if you psych yourself out and try to cram, get really nervous, all you're going to do is raise your heart rate. You're not going to become a better interviewer in the last hour. You're not going to become a better professional in the last hour. So don't try to do that then. that sort of mindset really is important. Now, when you go into an interview, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking it's a test that you can pass. Not only can't you pass, it's not a test. People go in and they either think this or sometimes they even want this to be true. They want to feel like they're going to sit down, be asked a series of questions. If they get all the questions right, they'll get the job. That's just not the way it is. It's not the way it is at all. An interview is not about binary yes or no. Am I going to ask you these questions or you get them right and then quote unquote pass and get a job? An interview, like every step of the entire candidate job seeking process, is a competition with other people, people you never get to see, people you don't get to hear their answers on the interview. But it's not about answering things in a binary way, yes or right, or yes or no, because you could answer everything yes, someone else could answer everything yes and have a better pitch. So don't come into this thinking it's a test. First off, you might even answer a lot of the questions, quote unquote, wrong, but still get there. That's happened with me on both sides of the desk. Um, People just make compelling cases for themselves. But I'm not going to sit there and grill you. In fact, as a hiring manager, my goal with every one of my questions is to spark the start of a conversation to give you the opportunity to pitch yourself to me, to tell me why you're the right person for this role, why you can improve our company in this role or as a member of our team. I'm not just trying to, score answers, so to speak. They're conversation starters, icebreaker questions. The worst interviews I conduct as a hiring manager are the ones where I get through every one of my questions. Ideally, I shouldn't. If I get through every one of my questions, it means you probably just gave me a sort of rote answer, then pass the ball back to me. I don't want that. I want a conversation. You want a conversation. Don't think of a test. These are two good analogies. Not everyone has done both of these, but I'm going to use them because I think most people have probably done one or the other. And if not, then you've at least maybe understood the concept from movies or pop culture. A first date is a much better analogy than a test. When you think of a test, you think of somebody that knows more than you, that is somehow an expert, that has authority over you. That's not the case. It's two people on equal footing evaluating each other, which is a lot more like a first date. Sure, they're evaluating you, but you're also evaluating them. You're on equal footing. You both have to decide that this is a valuable partnership in order to move forward. They can't offer you the job and force you to take it. So you're going on this sort of exploratory first date. So think about it like that. If you're halfway through the interview and you're realizing, wow, they're really grilling and interrogating me, I haven't said anything back, the conversation's been extremely one sided. If it doesn't seem like it's a good date, it's also not really a good interview, and you want to try and change that. The other great analogy for those that have done it, which again, I know not everyone's from this profession, but for those that have ever done sales, it's actually a lot like a sales call. When a sales professional goes into an appointment or a meeting or a sales call, they know that their goal is not to just answer a bunch of questions right. Because no prospect, no customer says to the sales professional, hey, I have a bunch of questions for you, and if you answer them all right, I'll buy your product. That's one in a million does that. Instead, you're looking to have a conversation where you get a bunch of what salespeople call discovery, which means information I'm learning about your problem, about your circumstance. I'm trying to figure out if what I have to sell, in this case, you, is right for that problem and make that case. Everything else is window dressing. I'm just trying to make the case that what I have is the right fit for your problem. If you think about it like that, all of these questions are not the thing you have to do by itself. They're just steps on the road to getting to that problem. So that means you're asking questions. That means you're exploring. That means when someone asks you a question like, tell me about a time when you had to deal with an extremely stressful customer. You answer the question, but also want to come back with, so tell me a little bit more about the kind of stressful relationship that we sometimes have with clients. What's causing that stress? Have that back and forth. So just remember that mindset as it goes in. The important thing is if you don't have the right mindset going in, you're going to be thinking extremely short term. You're going to be thinking of each individual question as if it's its own thing instead of part of a larger strategy that gets you to a job offer or to a next interview, depending on what stage you're at. And you're not going to be prepared to think big picture and think about good ideas that you can bring into that conversation. And I know people have done this. I know that a huge number of people I've interviewed or I've trained in interviews have done this. They answer each question. They're hoping it's the last one. Um, they are really thinking that if I just get this one question out of the way, I won't have to go to the next one, hopefully. But that's not really where you want to be. You want this conversation to continue, and you want to continue on the road you want. And if you're thinking at that level, the rest of this will fill in much more easily because you won't overanalyze each question. It'll be part of a conversation. So I know mindset is probably the most nebulous of the concepts we're going to talk about. I also think it's the most important. I think that having the right mindset when you come in really does make or break you. So I just want to temperature check with everyone here. Do you see, for those that maybe haven't thought about mindset, or even those that have, do you see that there is an important mindset component? Do you see that you can't just come in with technical knowledge and knock an interview out of the park? Do you see that you have to have that sort of mental readiness? Good, good. I see. And for those putting things into chat, just so I kind of explain my setup, I see, because I have a full screen on, I see like flashes of the chat, but I don't have a running chat box. So when you put something in chat, I see it for 2 seconds and then it goes away. So if there's any questions, Jill will handle them, but I can kind of see a little running feed of what's happening. So I see a lot of yeses. Good, good. If you struggle with mindset before you go into an interview, make that your primary thing. Don't do the rest of that stuff. Think in just in terms of, I want to have this conversation. By the way, the bonus tip that I promised at the very end relates to mindset. So stick around if you're interested in that. Okay, that was concept number 1, mindset. So important. Preparation, mindset, being in the right space for the interview, so important. We are on to concept number 2, the video. I started teaching video interviewing before the pandemic, well before COVID was a thing. I had been teaching people interviewing via video because it was already starting to become a trend even before COVID. COVID absolutely accelerated this, but did not invent it. There were plenty of video interviews even before this, but now it is definitely the standard. And moving forward, I don't think we're going to go back ever to pre-pandemic levels for interviewing. I think we have reached a sort of watershed, and some things are going to permanently change. We're going to see more remote work. We're not going to see it go back to its prior levels. It might go down a little bit, but I don't think it's ever going to go down to pre-pandemic levels. Same with video interviewing. And we should be happy because video interviewing is awesome. It's awesome because you don't have to commute, and it's awesome because you don't have to do a whole lot of the extra stuff. You can really focus on it. It's easier to do. You don't have to take a day off from work. You could just maybe take an hour lunch break or something if you happen to have a job while you're interviewing. There's a lot of advantages, but there's a lot of challenges. People don't always do it right. I have seen some really fantastic, amazing mess ups when it comes to video interviewing. I have seen a sink full of dirty dishes literally collapse mid-interview behind someone. Probably my favorite incidents was I interviewed a young man who had been away at college, lost his job, moved back with his parents. The only reason this is relevant is because he was interviewing me from his old room, which still had that Playboy poster hanging on his wall from when he was, 16 maybe. And, it's just the things in your home become background noise to you when you don't realize. So he just didn't realize that there was a big Playboy poster behind him the whole time we interviewed. Pay attention to your environment. Now, a few things that I've seen people do time and again. So not as maybe a big a deal as the Playboy poster. I don't think everyone's going to make that mistake, but really common mistakes are, first, where you frame yourself. You will notice that the way I'm talking to you now, we're pretty dead on eye level. I actually have my device set up, propped up here, so that we're kind of on eye level. Most people don't do that. Think about where your laptop is. For most of you that are on a laptop or a computer, something like that, think about where it is. Look at the camera right now. If every one of you turned your camera on right now, and you don't have to, but if every one of you did, chances are good I would be looking up most of your noses. Or you'd be looking down at the camera. Ask any teenager if that is a flattering angle for a selfie, and they will tell you no. What do you see when you see teenagers take selfies, right? They hold the camera up. You want eye level or higher. Shooting up from below, it's not a flattering look for anybody. And it's not just about your appearance either. Put your chin into your chest and have a conversation with someone. You'll fall asleep. You won't sound good. You won't sound confident. You won't be able to enunciate well. You really do speak better when you're speaking forward. Even better if you can do it. If you're physically comfortable with it. I love standing. I have a nice office chair, and I actually have one of those kind of posture correcting things, so my posture stays pretty good, and that's important because people can hear it, even if it's a phone interview, not video. Standing is really great because you do just tend to project a little better. You tend to speak a little bit more confidently when you're on that level, as opposed to slinking down. I've had people try to do video interviews from their bed. Please do not. And it's not just about respect for the other person. You won't be at your best if you do that. So lighting matters too. I have a lot of lighting in here to make sure that I'm not, super dimly lit, so that I don't look like I'm in witness protection program, blacked out like they have on those TV shows. I try to have sufficient lighting that you can see me. I make sure I have a relatively neutral background, right? There's not a whole lot of stuff going on in the background that I have here that's going to distract you from me talking. Some people go, that super high class bookshelf look, but I live in the 21st century and I have a Kindle, not a bookshelf, so that doesn't work for me. But whatever you want to put behind you is fine as long as it's neat, clean, not super busy. Don't backlit yourself. Don't sit in front of a really bright window. Don't sit in front of a bright light because it does wash you out on video. One of my really key tips for video. Here's something that's tricky. Right now, I'm looking at where the camera is, but that's not actually where I'd be looking if I was talking to a person on the screen. If you've ever done a one-on-one call, you know that the actual camera is not dead in the middle of the screen. So if you're looking dead in the middle of where the person's eyes are, you're not looking at the camera. It's kind of tricky, right? Because we're used to talking to a person, and as humans, our eyes naturally want to gravitate to where the other person's eyes are, but then we're not looking at them. Here's a tip for you. Get yourself a mirror. If you have makeup, a compact mirror is great, a hand mirror, anything like that. And just set it so that it's right next to or right behind where the camera is. Get out some duct tape and put it to the laptop if you have to. I'm serious. Because then you can look at yourself. Not only will your eyes gravitate there, you'll keep the eye contact focused. The other advantage is you'll be able to see your own face. And you'll see if you're kind of like drooping a little bit, or if you have some lettuce stuck in your teeth or something like that. But you'll be able to see yourself, which is a big advantage while on a video call. So hopefully I didn't spook you and make it seem like video interviewing is more complicated than it has to be. It's not. It's actually a really great tool, but you want to mind these things. They really do matter. Of course, it should go without saying, but I'll mention it too. Whatever video platform they're going to use, we're using Zoom here, but people use different things. Log in a little early. Make sure it's downloaded. Don't be one of those people that gets into an interview 4 minutes late and then says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Zoom wouldn't start up right," or "I had to download the update," or something like that. Just shows a little bit of a lack of preparation. Okay, that's video interviewing. That's pillar number 2. I think right now, and maybe that wasn't true 15 years ago, but right now it's absolutely one of the 4 pillars. If you don't nail video interviewing, you're going to be behind the curve. Be prepared to really have a good interview space. All right, pillar number 3, the STAR method. The STAR method, many people have heard of. I don't want to assume that everyone's heard of it. It's pretty common, but I never want to assume everyone's heard of it. But even if you have heard of it and used it, people make mistakes with this. It's so good. I mean, it's really, I'm not even just saying this because everyone uses it, so you'll have to use it. I actually legitimately think it's good. It's a really great framework to help you tell stories if you do it right. Even if you don't like it, though, I hate to break it to you, tons of interviewers use this. It is the gold standard for behavioral interview questions. These sort of behavioral interview questions are things like, tell me about a time when blah, blah, blah. Tell me about a time when you had a difficult situation with a coworker. Tell me about a time when you overcame a significant challenge. You want to answer with this method. That's your clue. Tell me about a time when, or tell me about a situation when, is your little mental heuristic that tells you, oh, they want a STAR answer. STAR is an acronym. It stands for situation, task, action, result. It means tell me a story and tell me a complete story. Here's what these mean high level for anyone that has not used this method before, or maybe has only used it very sparingly or only heard of it. What they're basically saying is, tell me the setup, tell me tell me what needed to be done, tell me what you did, and tell me why it worked or what happened as a result. That seems pretty basic, but people mess it up. When you're telling a story, or anyone's telling a story to you, sometimes halfway through the story, you or the person telling the story has that moment where they go, "Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you, Denise works in accounting, and that's why it was important that, or that's why it was weird that she was in the sales meeting." Have you ever done that, or had someone else do it where halfway through the story they wait and realize there's a detail that they knew but they forgot you didn't know, and it's relevant to the story, so they have to circle back and retell it? Yeah, that doesn't make for great storytelling. That's why the situation is so important. When you are telling your story, you have to set it up right. You have to start with once upon a time and explain why this is even a story. I was once conducting interview prep session with a client, and she was telling me her star answers, and she told me an interesting story about handling some reporting that was difficult to handle. And the story was compelling enough, but I didn't get why it happened. And then I said, "Tell me about this report. I don't get why this was such a big deal." And she goes, "Oh, I forgot to, you're not in accounting. I forgot that report that if we don't file it every quarter, we lose our business license and we go out of business." That's an important detail. That's something that I need to know at the beginning in order for me to capture why this is an important story you're telling me. So write this down. I mean, I put in my notebook, put that STAR right down the side of your notebook so that when you're telling a story, you remember to hit it. Look at that S, take the 2 seconds. When you pause for 2 seconds, you think it's an eternity, the other person doesn't even notice. Take the 2 seconds, remember the details. Why is this important? What do they need to know? Okay, well, once I was, working in this department at this company, what this department did was this, and that's important because without that, you can't get to, ABC. Tell me that, set it up. Next, tell me what had to be done. What was the actual inciting event, or the, procedure that had to happen? I'll say that most people handle this fine. I say, tell me about a challenging situation. Task is where most people are actually telling me the challenging situation. I'm not going to dwell on that one too much because most people don't make too many mistakes there. Again, some of the same rules as situation. Just make sure you're not leaving anything out that you're going to have to circle back to. Now, action and result. These are where people mess up. When you are telling me action, it's not just the action that moves the story forward. It's the action that makes you a hero. It has to be something you did. It has to be something that is unique to you, something that another person in your spot might not have done correctly, might not have had the ability to do. Remember, you're selling yourself here. You're telling me this story to illustrate why I should pick you and not everyone else. And now this is where that mindset comes in. If you don't have that mindset we talked about, that this is a competition, it's not a test where I'm answering binary wrong or right. It's a competition. If you're thinking binary wrong or right, then you might not think that way. You might just think, oh, I only need to tell you the action that got us to the end result. But if you're thinking, oh no, I have to illustrate why this answer to this question makes me a better candidate than the 9 other people you're going to ask this same question to, then you'll realize, okay, it has to be something where I'm the hero. I told you I've built my own sales offices. I once asked, a common question I would ask in interviews is, tell me about the biggest sale that you ever made. Common question. Well, one person was telling me this in the STAR method, and what actually happened was somebody needed the software that his company sold and just called up, said, I have 2 dozen licenses that I need. I'm ready to buy right now. Who can set me up? And he said, oh, great. And he set him up. That action doesn't make him the hero. He answered the phone. This was a client this was a unicorn, somebody that just fell into his lap and was going to buy no matter who picked up the phone. Nothing about that story made him a hero. You have to tell a story that actually involves your competency in some way. That's the big mistake people make there. The big mistake people make in the result category is they skip it. People just skip the end of the story all the time. They tell me what they did, And then they don't wrap it up, and they don't say, and so as a result, we delivered the project on time, or as a result, we came in under budget and exceeded client expectations, or as a result, I got that promotion. They just skip it. They say, here was the situation, here's what had to get done, so here's what I did. Don't wait for the interviewer to say, well, wow, so did it work? Don't let them get to that point. Tell the story that works. Say that you have that happily ever after moment. Leave them sitting back. Wow, that's a great story. So write this down the side of your notebook: situation, task, action, result. Put that STAR. And the reason, and I don't mean write it out, I just mean put the STAR, so that when you're telling a story, you can kind of tap your pen or glance at the notebook to just remind yourself that there are 4 beats to a story. Also helps keep you from rambling. If you're the kind of person that tends to overtalk on a story, that tends to drag it out very long, this can help you hit the beats. You can say, all right, I've said what the situation is. Next beat, I got to say what the task was. All right, I'm about 3 sentences in. I hope I've explained what the task was. Action, 3, 4 sentences in. Hope I've explained it. Result, 1 to 2 sentences. Hit those beats. This will help keep you on pace. And then it's sort of a mental checklist. Did I say all 4 of these things? Did I say them in a way that's compelling and avoid those mistakes John talked about? Then I feel confident in my answer. You don't want to do that thing that so many people do, and I bet you 2/3 of the people on this call have done it, no shame, where you answer a question, then you say, did that answer your question? You should feel confident that you answered their question without having to ask them. And this will help you do that. Okay, big chunks of information there. Let's pause. Temperature check. Those were 2 pillars. They were big. They were very technical. We will have time to do Q&A on them, but just right now in the moment, do you feel more confident about those things, about handling this, the technical aspect and the technical communication aspect through that STAR method? STAR is going to be 75% of every interview, folks. So if you know that well, you're going to feel good. Good. Seeing a few pop-up yeses. Good. Now there's room for flexibility there on both of these. On both the video, everyone's going to have a different background. On the STAR, everyone's going to answer a little differently. Don't let it crowd out your own style. But the style should be built on top of a really strong foundation. So I want you to have that strong foundation. Then absolutely feel like you can be flexible a little bit, but good. All right. Now, here is one everybody hates. This is a huge one. I guarantee you 9 out of 10 people on this call are going to get a lot of value out of this one because everybody hits this. Everybody gets asked, tell me about yourself. This question is so horrible that probably the only interviewer on the planet that doesn't ask this is me. I don't ask this because I do this, because of my experience as an interview coach and as a hiring manager. I don't ask this question because I hate this question. But everybody else on the planet asks it. What else can you do? There's not enough, unless you're really creative with your icebreakers, people feel like they have to start the conversation somehow, so they start here. We all hate it, everyone hates it. But you're going to get asked it until the rest of the world finally wises up and listens to me and stops asking it. You're going to get asked. And I'm going to tell you what happens when I ask. It's one of the reasons I stopped asking. Every answer I ever got was garbage. Every answer I ever got was a hot mess. Nobody answers this well. And I'm talking, I have interviewed people from entry-level salespeople coming in right out of high school or college, all the way up to C-suite executives. And I ask this question, and top to bottom, garbage. What always happens is people don't know what to say. They start kind of giving me trivia about themselves. They tell me where they grew up, or they tell me, what their hobbies are. Sometimes they default to kind of walking me through their resume. Don't ever walk somebody through your resume unless they pull it out and kind of ask, because unless they're asking, they have your resume. They've read it. Don't repeat. Don't waste the time. So nobody has a good foundation for what to say here. So here it is. I'm going to give you a good foundation, an actual template to create a tell me about yourself statement. Once you have this template, again, of course, you can expand on it if you want. You can turn it into more conversation during the interview, but this will now give you something you can write down for yourself, something you can practice, something you can have concrete to set the tone of a conversation. I call it the 3x3 model. This is totally custom to me. And it's basically because you're going to do 3 sentences. Simple 3 sentence framework. Don't over ramble. Each sentence is going to contain certain elements. And then the whole thing's going to come together as a cohesive whole. The first sentence should be 1 sentence, real short, about your past, professional past. Don't tell me where you were born, and don't tell me about who you had a crush on in kindergarten. Just, your professional past. But when you tell me about your past, don't tell me an autobiography where you tell me everything that happened in your past. Tell me what's unique to you. So for me, for example, if I were to give you a sentence about my past and they say, tell me about yourself. Well, I've had a very strange and winding career that took its turns through sales, recruiting, workforce development, talent development, and HR. And the unique combination of those things is really what lets me speak to people's careers in a way that's very helpful to them. That's it. That's the whole sentence. I'm not going elaborate. I don't need to talk about my jobs in sales. I don't any of that. This is high level. There will be time during the interview to filter down. So that's my past, something unique to me. Very, very few people have had exactly those experiences I've had. Your second sentence is about your present, and you want to focus on something you are doing or in possession of or practicing right now that has value to them. So right now, I'm the director of career services for Ama La Vida, which is a fantastic coaching company that can help people exactly like you improve their lives in all sorts of different ways. Boom. 1 sentence, just telling you exactly where I am, why it's valuable to you. And then third sentence is the future. And the element that you want to have in that sentence is the connection between you both. So in the future, what I'm hoping to do is create a partnership between our organization and yours so that I can bring those skills to bear for the employees of your company and help them all improve their career path. Done. Put those 3 sentences together. That's my tell me about yourself. That's my elevator pitch. It's high level. It leaves plenty of room now for the conversation to go in different directions, for them to ask me for elaboration on any of the things I've mentioned. But I didn't ramble for 20 minutes. And I didn't find myself losing the thread. I didn't find myself wondering if I'd said enough. I've given you a complete arc, and now I've set the tone for the conversation. I've also made sure that all of the elements in my 3 sentences are things I want to talk about. There might have been 6 different things in there you could ask me about, but they're all things I feel very confident about, all things I feel great talking about. So that's kind of an example of what I might do if I was, pitching our services to another company as maybe career coaching for an entire organization. And it's simple. Now, this is something you can do for yourself. This is not something that you should think about for the first time when you get asked. You should do this now. You should do this after this webinar is over. You should just jot this down. Write out 3 sentences, not paragraphs, sentences. Everybody, when we do this together, by the way, because I do this with almost all of my individual clients, when we do it together, everyone tries to give me paragraphs. And then pretty much the main thing I do as a coach is I take a machete and I cut out 2/3 of the words that they tried to put into these sentences. You're almost always saying too much. Keep them relatively short, relatively impactful sentences. Remember that there will be tons of time to talk more during the interview, right? This is happening in the first 2 minutes of an interview. You're not going to say this and then hang up the call. So you don't have to squeeze everything in on just this. So take some time, write it out, say it out loud, decide you don't like it, scribble something out, change a little bit, say it out loud, tell it to a friend, a roommate, a family member, practice a little bit. And I mentioned when I said Phil in the chat that this is something that I would put something in that you could all do together. This is a great one. This is a great little brainstorming and icebreaker. I know a lot of people put your LinkedIn into the chat. Great. How many times has somebody given you a LinkedIn or something like that, and then you think, wow, this person's sort of invited me to network with them, but I don't really know what to ask. There, I've given you your topic. I have given you your icebreaker topic to network with anyone else that was on this call to say, hey, tell me about yourself, and I'll tell you about my tell me about yourself. There, now you can practice a little bit, get some feedback from each other. And in the process of practicing this, you'll learn a lot about each other because you're going to be telling each other this. So if you want a great icebreaker for networking, this is it. Okay. That one I know is almost always hugely impactful for people, a big thing that they can do. I know I flipped through that slide just now without warning you. everyone's going to get mailed this this webinar, so don't worry about that. But do you have a better understanding of what makes a great introduction, of why telling me that you're from Minnesota and have 3 cats and is just not super impactful, but that is? Awesome. Practice it with each other, or if not each other. I know some people are varying levels of introverted, extroverted. So if you don't want to do it with total strangers on the internet, do it with people you trust. Do it with friends, family members, anybody around. But it's a really great one to practice live because you should feel comfortable saying it, not just knowing it, but comfortable saying it. So you should say it out loud a few times. The best thing about it is if you keep it to 3 sentences, the way I said, it's easy to memorize. It's easy to rehearse and easy to be able to say and feel confident. Okay. Those are the 4 pillars. Everybody, those 4 things: your preparation for mindset, being able to have a great just video setup where you pay attention to the details, mastering that STAR method and its common mistakes, and absolutely crushing that tell me about yourself to set the tone of the interview. Those 4 things, you get those right, you are 95% to a great interview every time. The little things after that are details. They'll fill in the cracks. Obviously, there's going to be things that I can't prepare you for, even if we work together. I can't make you better at your specific job if I don't know it. Obviously, interviews are at some point going to involve, some technical questions about your role. That's just relying on you. You have to actually know what you're doing at that point. You can't completely fake competence. But so many competent people don't get the role they want because they can't interview. So if you master those 4 things, at least that aspect of the interviewing, you're going to do great with. Now, I told you that I was going to do a little bit of commercial. Here it is. So if you don't want to hear a commercial, you can leave, and I won't hold it against you. And I know you're going to crush interviews just with those 4 tips. If you do want to hear a commercial, awesome. And then I put another bonus tip behind it and the Q&A. So there'll still be more fun stuff to do. So the commercial is this. It is December, and our big December kind of blowout promotion thing that we're doing is 15% off an annual membership sign up. Jill is going to put a link in the chat right now. I promise that the link is not like a purchase link. It's not to PayPal. It's just going to open up a calendar, and I want everybody to open that up. When Jill puts that link in there, if she hasn't already, I want you to click on it. I want you to open it in another window so that you see what it is. Awesome. Great timing. Open that up and see what it is. What that calendar goes to is that goes to the calendar of our relationship specialist team. The relationship specialists are our first contact people. They know all of the coaches. They know all the specialties. They know everything about what we do at Amla Vita, and they play matchmaker. You get this free half-an-hour phone call with them where they know all sorts of stuff about what we do. You can ask them a ton of questions, all sorts of things ranging from what sort of solutions might be available to just even internal stuff about how Amla Vita works. And based on the conversation you'll have, they will match you with one of the many coaches that we have here. It's not just me. I am the director of a whole career team, and then there's others. There's leadership, and there's life, and there's health and wellness. So it's not just me. Even if you're here interviewing, but you think to yourself, there's something totally else I want to talk about, please book that free half an hour. I'm putting that up there just so you know that is how you first get in contact with us. For all of December, normally our memberships are monthly. You register and you come by the month. However, we always have the option to sign up for a full year. In December, we are doing 15% off the full year. This is a really, really great deal for everybody. It's a super great deal for our existing clients. I know that some of the people on this call are existing clients. Well, guess what? Even though you are an existing client already, this still applies to you, because if you found that your coaching experience is great, you want to continue it, this is a great way to save a ton of money. This is more than a month off of your membership if you know that you're going to be continuing with us. In fact, for our existing clients, it's actually a little better. 15% comes to a certain dollar amount, but it's kind of a weird dollar amount. I forget what it is, but we rounded it up for our existing clients. So if you're existing clients, it just gets rounded up to, I think, $750 off is the number. But so if you're an existing client, it's actually even like a touch bit better because we just rounded it up for you. So, but for anybody that really wants to make 2021 the year, right? Really wants to put this dumpster fire behind us and create something new in 2021. This is just absolutely a phenomenal deal. Okay, that's my spiel. That's my commercial. I promised I would not drag it out super long. But now I'm going to jump into this bonus tip, and then we're going to do Q&A. So here is my bonus tip. My bonus tip is you can win on every interview you go on, even interviews where you don't get a job offer. People, again, they treat interviews as binary. It's win or lose. It's not the case. If you manage your interview process well, then interviews can actually be something that propel you forward no matter what. I, as a hiring manager, have helped people that I turned down for a job that interviewed with me. I have helped them land a great job. And I'm not saying that to like toot my horn or to try to say that I am especially great. I did it because they did something to encourage or open that door. I did it because they reached out after receiving, either my phone call or email, however we communicated, to let them know that we'd gone another direction. They reached out politely, enthusiastically, good-natured, didn't argue the decision, but just said, thanks so much for your time. It was really great talking to you. I'd love to stay connected. And hey, this is the kind of job that I want in my career. So I would love any feedback from you about how I could improve either my interview performance or even maybe just my value as a candidate if you felt that I was missing a skill that I should have. Wow, I am blown away by that email because I don't get that email too often. Hiring managers, they're a little gun shy because when we send out emails or phone calls and let people know that they didn't get the role, we usually get nothing, and sometimes we get vitriol. Sometimes we get some real mean comments back. That's why you have to be really nice, really polite, because some recruiters and hiring managers are going to be a little spooked by even getting an email. But if you write like that, first off, in some rare cases, a decision actually gets reversed because of something like that. That's not really what you should shoot for. What you should shoot for is make a contact, make that friend. I have those people in my network still. Hiring managers and recruiters are such great people to have in your professional network. They know each other. They talk to each other. Half of my thousands of connections on LinkedIn are other recruiters and hiring managers and people in the talent management field because that's my field. So we all know all of these people. Also, we don't stay. A hiring manager that you have a great relationship at one point, 5 years later, you never know where they're going to be. Don't just think about your next job. Think about your whole career. Think about all of the foundational contacts and network you want to build so that in 5 years, in 10 years, you're not even doing these kind of interviews. You're just networking a few phone calls, you've got a job offer. So you can absolutely do that. Here's another great tip. And this is something that's kind of unique to video interviewing. So I have right in front of me, I kind of explain my setup. I'm looking at one device. I have sort of a separate device for video. Also, right here, I have my laptop where I've got this presentation open and I'm flipping through. But right over here, I have just propped up on a stand my phone. You could do that too. You can't see my phone, but it's on my desk, it's propped up, and you could turn the camera on and you could just film yourself. Most of the time, we don't get that sort of live feedback, but athletes film themselves playing all the time, and then they watch hours and hours and hours of their own batting practice or their own running just to look for form and look for ways to improve. You can do that. You could film your whole interview and no one would know. The other person would have no idea you were filming yourself. And then when it was done, you could go back and listen to how you answered certain questions. And maybe you said something great, but you forget it in the moment. So you lose it and it's not something you use next time. This is a way to improve your performance on the next interview. So these are all tips that can let you take individual interviews and again, get away from that binary of they either got me the job or they were a failure. And instead make everything an improvement towards your eventual career. Write down information you learned. If you're going on interviews in a particular career field, you will learn things on the interview that you might not have learned anywhere else. I've joked before, and it's only really half a joke. There's really a lot of truth to it, that if you really want to learn a new career field, go on 10 interviews in that career field. Even if you started from nothing, by the 10th interview, you'll talk like an expert. Because you'll be talking to experts and they'll be asking you expert level questions. So you'll sort of learn what you don't know. And if you jot it down immediately, you take good notes during the interview, you come after, you say, okay, I don't think I got that job because I don't think I had good answers to these questions, but I wrote down the questions. So now I'm going to go find out. I'm going to find out what those answers would have been. I'm going to find out what other people say. I'm going to ask other people in the profession. So do those things and make sure you're improving every step of the way. That's my big bonus tip. I think it's a really great thing to carry forward. Okay, that's it. Let's do Q&A. Ask me anything from this webinar. Ask me questions. I know that some of you, again, I'm sorry, I only see the kind of flashes of the chat, so I don't know what everything was on there, but Jill's been monitoring, so I'm sure some questions have come up already. Jill will start with those, and then more people can ask as they go. Since we have looks like about 10 minutes for Q&A, I'm gonna remind everybody that if we don't get to all the questions here today, that's okay. There's that link I had everybody open that's got that calendar. There's a free half hour with one of our relationship strategists to ask tons of questions, and then get involved, join more of our webinars, read our blog, go to our social media. I mean, we put a ton of this content out there, and I'm super happy to share it with you. But let's get to some questions right now. Jill, what do you got for me?
All right. Okay, from Anna, how do you conquer the imposter syndrome during the interview?
Okay, everybody has it. I have it. I have imposter syndrome. I've done a million interview webinars and interview training, and I still get it sometimes. Preparation helps. The more prepared you are, the less you will feel like an imposter. I will also, I'm gonna tell you something right now to combat some imposter syndrome for everyone on this call. Right now, you are attending of your own free will, of your own volition. You have spent an hour of your day just to learn more about interview technique. You've put your own effort and energy into this. So not only do you have the content from this and do you have the information, but also you're the kind of person to do that. That puts you in a small percentage. I have interviewed conservatively 8,000 people in my career. Believe me, they have not all attended interview webinars. They have not all sought out this kind of information and incorporated it into their performance clearly. There have been just some absolute doozies out there. Most people do not interview well. So already just know that statistically you're probably in a higher tier just because you're the kind of person to do this. You're the kind of person to actively seek out self-improvement. So take that as a point of confidence. But in addition to that, preparation really does help. If you feel like you've got a really good tell me about yourself, if you feel like you know the social media and the website content, if you feel like you've gone to the LinkedIn page of the person that's interviewing you, believe me, there's not much more than that. So if you are there, that's a good way to feel confident. I've got it. I know what I'm doing. And as far as your own professional skill set, your imposter syndrome about what you know and what you can perform as a professional. The best advice that I really can give you is to seek out other professionals. I think imposter syndrome thrives in a vacuum and it thrives in isolation. And the more you interact with other people in your profession, the more imposter syndrome goes away. I think that if you work in sales, join sales groups. If you work in marketing, join marketing newsletters. Whatever it is that you do, communicate with a lot of other professionals, and I think that really helps.
Awesome. Thanks, Johnny. All right, let's see. There's another one. So I think this was when, I forget what slide you were talking about, but Marlene asked, what about asking for the job?
Oh, like being that assumptive closer. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love when people do this. Now, you have to feel it out. There's a personality element here. I love it. I also worked in sales for a long time, so I really love it. Not everyone necessarily feels the same way, so you sort of have to feel the information out. But the thing to remember is that they want to hire someone. No one does interviews for fun. Somebody is getting hired. I think that being assumptive about being a great candidate, about being excited to talk more, is the way to go. Is to say, I'm so excited about working on this project. I'm so excited about solving these problems. I can't wait to hear about the next steps for us working together. You can be assumptive, but with a little bit of subtlety to it. Not just so brash that you say, so when am I receiving my offer letter? Unless you feel like the rapport that you have with your interviewer was so strong that you can pull that off in a sort of funny way. I recommend expressing your excitement about the next step, excitement about solving problems together, about overcoming challenges together. I can't wait for the next steps. I look forward to hearing from you. It's nice and assumptive, but doesn't quite cross that line into aggressive.
Awesome. Great question. I had a feeling you would enjoy that one, John.
Of course, my brand is clear.
All right. So Jennifer, the LinkedIn competitive analysis with regard to skill match for jobs, do you know if that is accurate regarding the needed skill set for the job, or does it just compare you to other applicants? Follow up, I'm asking because I'm worried about even getting an interview in the first place.
It doesn't even compare you to other applicants. It compares you to like a keyword algorithm. It looks for keywords in job descriptions of that type. It's not a really great, I mean, it can be a directional tool, right? Like if you take it and maybe there's a gap on there that then when you research looks like, it might be functional, something for you to learn, great. But please take it with like 10 grains of salt. And I know of almost no hiring managers that use it directionally. I don't know of any hiring managers that take that and use that to create job descriptions or to ask interview questions. So it's really this algorithm that's sort of trying to use a keyword search algorithm to help you guess what a hiring manager might ask for. So there's so many steps in there, and I don't think it's hugely necessary. If you are worried about even getting to the interview, because it's an interview webinar, I don't want to deviate too much from that topic, but two things. One, open up that link, because this is something we do all the time. So open up that link. If you're worried about the whole job search and not just interviewing, we help, we do that. And also look for, and I don't know, Jill will have to maybe fill you in on where to get this, but just a few weeks ago, I did a webinar on how to craft fantastic job applications to get you the interview. So we're kind of doing this in order. There might be some good tips in there for you.
Love it. Okay, that's actually all the questions that we have in the chat box.
Standing.
Yeah. Oh, just kidding. Here we go.
Oh, great. Perfect. This is probably
awesome.
we're at 2 minutes. This is probably the last one then.
Yeah. How important are cover letters in modern applications? What's a good length, good strategy? I try and just pick out a few things from the job description that maybe want to apply and mention what I can in terms of keywords and skills.
I hate cover letters. Cover letters are terrible. It's a terrible process. And as much as possible, we should avoid doing them. Sometimes, that being said, they are inevitable. If you are writing a cover letter, remember that it's a pitch. It's not an autobiography, right? When you get a flyer in your mailbox for the local pizza place, the flyer does not contain, right, like a bio about the owner of the pizza place. It doesn't contain a history of the pizza place. At most, there's in business since 1958. That's it. What it has is all this information for you. Like, look at these deals. Look at this great picture of this great pizza. Look at this money off. Here's these coupons. It's all about you. That's the mindset. When you're writing a cover letter, don't write about you at all, right? Like, write about them and solving their problem. If you hire a plumber to fix the leaky sink, I don't care anything about that plumber's background. I only care that he can fix my sink. That is the pitch. So you really want to look at the job and talk directly about the solutions for it. That will catch people's attention more than anything else. If you go to that other webinar, and I think this is something that maybe we should put up on, maybe put on social media at some point, Jill, is that other webinar. If you're looking about getting people's attention, I talk about that a lot. I'll give it a little space here, but just to keep things separate, I'll point you in that direction of a whole hour's worth of content on that. But the basic idea is you're trying to get attention. When 500 people apply to a job, 10 of them get a call back for an interview. What does not happen is a hiring manager does not go through 500 applications and pick the 10 best on the merit. Doesn't happen, can't happen. Instead, 10 people somehow set themselves apart. They sent a separate message on LinkedIn, just connecting and saying something nice. They sent kind of maybe a bolder thing. They sent something in video. They sent a PDF. They did something a little bit bolder. If you're applying through a text field box, they did the extra mile to find a way to circumvent that and found who would be posting that on LinkedIn and made a comment on their post, something like that. they did a little something extra to move themselves onto the short list. Then they'll get evaluated on the merit based on their interview and everything, but you got to get on that short list first. And sometimes you got to just be bold to get on that short list and do something unusual. So, and I will point you, I did a whole hour-long webinar on how to do exactly that I will have Jill, maybe we can even, Jill, put the link to that one in the follow-up email for this. I don't mind doing that.
We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's our content for the day. Everyone, I hope that you are going to crush your next interview. And I think if you go in with the mindset, practice these tools, you absolutely will. You absolutely cannot do worse by taking these things into effect. And oops, I want to stop share. By taking these things, putting them into effect, you can't do worse. These things can only help you getting better at storytelling, having the right mindset, putting yourself in a better frame, and having a really great opening pitch. I mean, these are elemental things that if you improve on are just such incredible needle movers in your interview game. Go out there, put them into practice, and you are going to crush your next interview.
Awesome. Look at that. Only 2 over, John. You did so well today.
Whew, I tried.
You did great.
You had a lot of content.
You did great. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for staying 2 minutes extra.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And as John said, this was a ton of content. So as you give yourself time to let it process and digest, if you have any additional questions or any lingering questions, you can ask us, but please feel free to take advantage of that free consult, because you never know what could happen. So let us know if you have any other questions. We had a lot of questions about the recording. Yes, we will be sending this out to everyone later. But thank you all so much for joining. We hope to see you for another event sometime soon.
See everybody soon.
Bye, everybody.